When you count the cost, are you counting the cost to decide whether or not you should even start the task at hand, or are you counting the cost to find out how to complete the task that you've set out to do? I have been thinking about this concept for, I don't know, a week or so now, and I've got several, well, at least two other witnesses on this topic, and so I thought I should probably share this. And it goes back to this section of Luke where Yeshua is explaining that you need to count the cost. And I'm going to read it real quick because I don't want to miss anything. It's all very important. But it's found in Luke 14. I'm going to start at 25. Large crowds were traveling along with Yeshua. Turning, he said to them, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father, his mother, his wife, his children, his brothers, and his sisters, yes, and his own life besides, he cannot be my Talmud," which I believe means taught ones, but in this translation, it has the original Hebrew. And on into 27, it says, "Whoever does not carry his own execution stake and come after me cannot be my Talmud. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Don't you sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough capital to complete it? If you don't, then when you have laid the foundation but can't finish, all the onlookers start making fun of you and say, 'This is the man who began to build but couldn't finish.' Or again, suppose one king is going out to wage war with another king. Doesn't he first sit down and consider whether he, with his 10,000 troops, has enough strength to meet the other one who is coming against him with 20,000? If he hasn't, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation to inquire about terms for peace. So every one of you who doesn't renounce all that he has cannot be my Talmud. Salt is excellent, but if even the salt becomes tasteless, what can be used to season it? It is fit for neither soil nor manure. People throw it out. Those who have ears that can hear, let them hear." So I have read this before. Obviously, this is an oh, excuse me, I hit the computer. This is an important concept to count the cost. But the issue that I was having was I would hear this used in a way to justify not acting in certain situations, and that just didn't make sense to me. I think the application I was seeing wasn't really matching up with scripture. So let me explain. Now I'm going to use this example. If you were going, if somebody petitioned you to marriage, for example, and remember that he's supposed to be our bridegroom, and we're petitioning, for marriage, and someone has to count the cost. Can I afford a wife? Can I this? Can I that? Then I wouldn't even want that. Because you have to count the cost. Because the decision is coming from you counting the cost. And I intuitively understood that. And I didn't understand, like, logically that makes sense. You want to make sure that you're able to complete the task, right? But something just didn't ring true to me. And it kind of troubled me. But God is good and faithful. And He's going to help us to understand. And so I guess it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. I'm going to tell a story because I think it really gives you an idea of what I think the Lord was showing me this week with this. And I'm sharing the testimony of somebody else that I was talking to. I did tell her that I wanted to include this because it just spoke so much to me. So a few days ago, I had spoke to someone, and we had been speaking about them reaching out to someone they were estranged from, a family member. And I supported her with whatever she felt the Lord was leading her to. We don't always understand it, and whether or not we think it's a good idea or not, we have to let people be led by the Spirit and what their convictions are, and pray for them, that God prevent them from stumbling. Right? And so I was supportive of this. She found out the estranged family member was dying. So she felt very convicted to, like, I shouldn't say convicted, very, she had desired to go down and visit them, and they're not local, so she would have had to do all of these things. And I counseled her to speak to her partner about the whole situation to figure out what they wanted to do. And then she told me yesterday morning that she decided not to even talk to her partner about it because she decided she wasn't going to go. And I was a little confused. I thought, such a change. And so I asked, like, okay, I let her speak so I could understand. I didn't care either way. It really had nothing to do with me. I was just curious about the about face. And she shared with me that she was so focused on, I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I have to find money for this, and I have to take off work. And she had all of these things that she was considering. She was counting the cost of going to see this person on their deathbed. And she said to me, if it was my grandmother, I wouldn't have. I would have recognized what I had to do. She would have counted the cost. But that wouldn't have been her determining factor, right? She would have said, I have to take off work. I have to make this. I'm going to make this happen. This is what has to happen. And I'm going to find a way to make it happen. She got her list. She counted the cost and knew this is what she would have to do. This is her hypothetical situation. So she said, basically, now I'm paraphrasing because this was a conversation I had with her. I can't remember exactly how it went. But because she counted that cost with him, this estranged person, the very fact that she had to count the cost spoke to her. I'm not saying you shouldn't count the cost. Yeshua tells us to. But when I'm about to look at that and break this down for you, that isn't your determining factor of whether you should do it. That's just telling you how to do it. You have to be prepared to do what you want to do. You have to think, how am I going to do this? What is it going to take to do this? Not, should I do this? If you are determining whether you should do something based on whether or not you can, that should tell you everything about how important it is to you. Because if it was really that important, you would pay whatever price it meant. And this is what I believe Yeshua is saying. You're not worthy of him. Because if I was petitioning someone for marriage and they had to count the cost, you're not worthy of me if what you have to give up is more important than me. And that's what he's saying. If you're not willing to pay any price for me, you're not worthy of me. So this person was willing to, for her grandmother, because she loved her grandmother, if it was her. You see, it's your motive, it's your heart. So I think people use this verse to justify not doing things because, they can't, because they're being wise by counting the cost. And I think that it is wise to count the cost. But the The point is, are you willing to pay it? Does it matter? See, counting the cost is about completing the task, not deciding to do the task. Right? And we see this when we talk about the king, because everyone focuses on building the tower. That you shouldn't even start if you don't have the money. Well, it didn't say that. It said that you have to count the cost first. Right? You have to make sure you have the capital to complete the task. So if you don't have the capital, you find the capital. Right? God's a waymaker. He's going to make rivers in the desert. He's going to make the way. You just have to be willing to pay the price that he tells you to pay, right? And he tells us this. He gives us exactly what we have to pay. So then we see in verse 31, or again, suppose one king is going out to wage war with another king. Doesn't he first sit down and consider whether he, with his 10,000 troops, has enough strength to meet the other one who is coming out against him with 20,000? If he hasn't, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation to inquire about terms of peace. Because the point here was peace. The king wanted peace. And war is part of that. Somebody's coming to wage war with you, well, then you're going to fight, right? For peace, because that's what was important to the king. This is what he wants. If he can't do it that way, he's going to find a way through a treaty. This person who's building the tower, you don't have enough capital to complete it. Well, if you don't have enough to complete it, you need to find that before you start. You have to understand what the cost is. So Jesus tells us, large crowds were traveling. He says, if anyone comes to me, I shouldn't even bother taking these glasses off anymore. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father, his mother, his wife, his children, his brothers, and his sisters, yes, and his own life besides, he cannot be my Talmud. Are you willing to love him and pay whatever price it is? So let's just hypothetically think about that. Well, you know what? I'm actually gonna read you the second witness that I had that inspired me to make this recording this Shabbat. A friend of mine randomly sent me this quote on Messenger, and God bless him for being my second witness. I think that was wonderful. And he the quote was from Richard Wurmbrand from 1909. He lived from 1909 to 2001. And this is from Tortured for Christ. And this is what the quote is. It was strictly forbidden to preach to other prisoners. It was understood that whoever was caught doing this received a severe beating. A number of us decided to pay the price for the privilege of preaching, so we accepted their communist terms. It was a deal. We preached and they beat us. We were happy preaching. They were happy beating us, so everyone was happy. See, they knew what the price was. It wasn't a matter of, oh, I shouldn't do it. I'm happy to pay it. This woman I was talking to, if it had been, a different person, she would have been happy to pay it. Because counting the cost is what does it take, not if you should do it. So if you have to count the cost to follow Jesus, if you have to say, I don't know if I should, or if you have to count the cost in anything in order to decide whether you're doing it, then you're probably not doing it for the right reason. And I'm not going to judge that, because you have to be practical too, and sometimes you have to delay things until you can accomplish that. I'm going to use this other example. A while ago, I asked the Lord what he wanted me to do. And he told me to go to Florida. And I thought, I have no money. And I have everything I need. I have no wants. Everything is fine, but I don't have money to do whatever. I said, okay, Lord, well, I don't have any money. It's going to cost money to get there. What do I do? And he told me these things would happen. And when these things happen, you would go. And sure enough, they did. I knew what I needed in order to go. He made it happen. See, my answer was yes, I'll do whatever you want. You want me to go? All right. Because I knew he would make a way. He is the way maker. And sometimes we can't do something immediately. But that doesn't mean that our answer should be no. It should mean, how do I accomplish this? You want me to do this? What do you need me to do? This is counting the cost. Lord, you want me to go do this? This is what I perceive I need to do. This is the cost that I have calculated. What am I going to do about that? He's going to find a way for you. Yeshua told us to sacrifice it. If you're not willing to sacrifice everything, if you're not willing to find a way to love him, even if it means losing everything else, then you're not worthy to be one of his taught ones. You're not worthy of serving him because you're not doing it because you love him. You're doing it because you can do it. The beauty is when you can't. The miracles are when you can't, when there's no reason why you should be able to, and you do it anyway. Just like David and Goliath. See, God's going to be the one that makes the way. You just have to be willing to do what he asks you to do. Count the cost, present it to him, and if it's his will, he'll make the way. If you have to count the cost and decide you don't have what it takes to do it, then you're missing the point. You don't have what it takes to do it. You don't. But he does. So you see, I went to Florida because he had something for me to do there. I wanted to serve him. I didn't have what it took to do it. I looked at the tower that needed to be built, and I knew what was required. If I had left then without petitioning him, without saying, this is what I need, this is the capital that I need to do this, I would have gotten there and been stuck or whatever, not been able to complete the task at hand. He had a reason for me to go, but this is the cool part. I had no idea why I was going. Not really. Just told me I needed to. Well, there was a series of events that happened. I'm not going to go into all of it, but when I got down there, I was in the right place at the right time to do the thing that he wanted me to do. See, if I had gone earlier, if I had tried to find a way on my own, I wouldn't have been there at the right time. He knew what it was going to cost before he even asked me to do it. And it was the willingness that I had, that I was willing to pay it, that he made it happen in the right time. A lot of us get scared. We think, I can't do it. So we just say no when God puts it in front of us. I can't because I don't have the money. I can't because I don't have the time. I can't. Well, if God is asking you to do it, and Yeshua is, he said, pick up your cross, follow me. He's asking us to do something. Don't you think he's going to make a way for it to happen? If you're willing to say yes? But you have to be willing to say yes and do what he tells us to do to get what we need to do, the thing that we need to do. He knows what he wants built. He knows what tower he wants built. He knows what army he wants you to conquer. Whatever it is. Your heart has to be willing to do what he tells you to do. That's it. He'll take care of the rest. Count the cost in order to accomplish the task, but don't count the cost in order to decide to do the task.